Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Quarantine Film Series. I'm your host, Kabir Segal, and it's good to be back broadcasting these shows to you somewhat regularly. We've done over 120 shows. We started the show in earnest many months ago. I'm broadcasting live from Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm quarantining with my parents. See, I don't have to ask them to get off the Wi-Fi right now because it is really early in the morning and no one's up. So I can just use all the Wi-Fi. I can get that great internet signal. And so it's wonderful to be here. We started the broadcast, as you know, because earlier this year, the creative calendar was essentially canceled. Concerts, gigs, film festivals. And so this is a way to put the spotlight back on the amazing artists, filmmakers, authors who create the stories and create the content that entertain, provoke, and challenge us. So thank you for tuning in. If you want to be in the loop of when we're broadcasting, subscribe on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all the social media, so you'll be the first to know. And of course, if you have a question live, just drop it in the comments. We'll be sure to ask our wonderful artist and guest today, or even on the rebroadcast. If you're watching not live, drop a question and I'll try to respond to you in an asynchronous manner. So that's the show. I'm excited to, that's the preview. I want to just introduce an incredible artist today. Really is someone who is a talented filmmaker, who is very talented, a creative and conceptual artist of the highest order. She is a Quechua filmmaker, writer, artist, and technologist, best known for directing the award-winning documentaries Cocaine Prison, The Fight, The Bolivian Case, and Stolen. We're going to talk about all of these. And in 2019, she was invited to be the Sundance Film Festival as a New Frontier Talent Fellow with Prison X, a new Andean installation that includes a VR film. And she's a very, very remarkable person. And I want to welcome all the way from around the world, the most talented artist out there we know. Welcome to the broadcast, the incredible Quechuan filmmaker, Violeta Ayala. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good morning, or I should say good evening to you. Nice to see you. Tell me first, I want people to know, where specifically are you broadcasting from?
I'm in Sydney, Australia at the moment. Yeah.
Very nice. It's a lovely place. Tell me first, how has the quarantine affected you, Violeta? What did you have lined up that you had to cancel or postpone?
It's interesting because in Sydney, we have lived the quarantine in a very different way. In the beginning, I came back from Sundance in 2020, and then we quarantined for a little while, but then everything opened it up and it hasn't closed again. So within Sydney, I can do pretty much whatever I want. So it's very different to see my family and my friends, all of them suffering so much. And when we pretty much are close up, Australia is an island so far away. It's the first time in my career and in my life, in my adult life, that I'm in a place for almost a year. I haven't been going to festivals. I haven't been going to shoot. I supposed to go back to shoot in Bolivia in October. I don't know if people know, but in Australia, we cannot get out. So to fly overseas, you need a special permission from the government, and it takes between 2 to 3 months to get this permission. So it's quite hard. I came back for 5 months. I'm supposed to be working here from January to May, and I'm here. I'm still here, and I'm grateful. And I'm grateful to be here because I'm okay.
Yeah, I hear you. I think a lot of folks who are, this is me included, this is the first time I've stayed in one place for such a long time. It's not just go. And so I like to ask, what kind of routine do you have? How do you maintain creativity? Do you wake up at the same time? Is there structure? Is there no structure to your days?
I think that I've been working a lot on virtual reality. So it's a different world in a way, because I see virtual reality as two things. One is the end of itself, but also it can be a medium, a tool to create 2D. So I've been working on animation and virtual reality a lot, and that has kept me going and in a way alive in a creative way. And at the same time, I've been working on editing my film, the Feature of the Fight, that's being funded by ITVS and Screen Australia. So I'm in the process of now a rough cut. So, like, I think that one thing that of course we had to be very careful, and we couldn't go out much, and I stopped going out much. So that's quite hard. And also the fact that you have to be in one place. So I just really work a lot. I still do. For a period of time, I wasn't working so much, but at the moment I'm working, I think maybe too much. So I'm going to take a week off, and I'm going to disconnect totally next week. Like, I'm going to put my phone and all the internet out, and I'm going to read a book that I've been trying to read for a while. And I think that those periods of disconnection maybe will help me to be focused.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I think it's good to disconnect, but it's also good that you've been so productive. I'm excited to see the new film when it's ready. Let's get into some of your film work and talk about Stolen. Talk to us about what Stolen is, why you wanted to take on this project. It sounds fascinating. Tell the audience about it.
I was very young, I think, and it was my first film, and I went first to Mauritania to make another short film, like reportage style, and I found out what was happening in Western Sahara, and I was really sad. And at the time, I felt like there were people who spoke Spanish who lived in the Sahara, and they're pretty much in the middle of a war, and they are in Algeria, and there's a big geopolitical war between Morocco and Algeria. I didn't know at the time. And I went and I found Fatim Salami and a family, and I started following a Black family. We went 3 times to the camps. And on our third trip, they told us that they were the slaves of the Bejan, that it's literally translates to white Arab. And wow, it was crazy. We were detained, and they stole our tapes, and we got back our tapes, and someone brought it to Mauritania, and we ended up making the film. And when the film premiered, the Polisario actually brought the woman to the premiere in Sydney to say that wasn't true, that it was crazy. But really, it was in a way, they say no, like, publicity is publicity, even bad publicity. I don't know if it's true. I think that it was painful. But at the end, Human Rights Watch went twice, and then it said that slavery existed, and they confirmed it. And then it's an anti-slavery association in the camps, and Morocco actually abolished slavery because of that. So I think that, and also the Polisario. So in a sense, the impact, I learned the impact of my work, but it was hard.
Yeah, you're a true change maker with that, and able to create sort of meaningful reform. What was the critical response? What did audience members think when they saw it? Were they uplifted, motivated, inspired, driven to action? What would you say was the prevailing takeaway?
It was interesting because Stolen won the best documentary at the Pan-African Film Festival. And it was awarded by amazing filmmakers like Yoruba Richin, who are now quite well-known producers, Black producers in the US. And I think it was interesting because when we screened in Atlanta, and I remember a woman who saw the film in LA and drove or flew just to see it with her daughter, so they understand what slavery was and what it meant. So for me, it created a link with the Black community in the US that it's unbreakable. Like the film screen on PBS, Afropop, and until now, they're going to screen Cocaine Prison on the 4th of October, my last film. So it's amazing, it opened the doors to this. For me, community is everything, and to this, I don't know how to call it, but it created a link and a bond with the Black community and the African American community, and the African community, because won so many prizes in Africa, by the way, that could never have been possible if that wasn't for the film. But the most important thing, it has created change, I don't even know, these days,
100%.
because we don't know.
Yeah, 100%. Talking about creating change, your movie, The Bolivian Case, certainly. Talk to us about why you wanted to create that movie. What was so special about it? I mean, all these films, you get to spend a couple years of your life just invested in it. So why did you take on this project?
Well, I wanted to I think that the war on drugs, or the drug war, is one of the most horrible and the longest war in the world, and has harmed so many people, and has harmed so many indigenous people in all the Americas, and the most vulnerable Black people and Latinos. And so for me, it was important to show who was doing the traffic, and change with the Bolivian case, and show that it wasn't a thing that is done just by us, the indigenous people, but it was also done by the white people. And I wanted to show, with these stories about 3 girls, and it shows the justice system in the please. And sorry, I have my little daughter,
No problem.
as we all know, doing this.
Yeah.
So I wanted to show the disparity in the justice system. So there were 3 girls, and the 2 white girls escaped and are free in Norway, and they went to trial. So the film follows the trial in Norway, and the girl who had like a Rodriguez last name and was darker, she was like the one who was guilty and ended up spending almost 10 years in prison. But not just there, but also in Norway, like the kids who had a Latin appearance, or like a Latin last name, or even not even that, even like it went like a social scale. Like the wealthiest and the whitest came free, even though one of the guys ended up killing himself after, or dying with an overdose. So it's very and the white people were able to redo their lives. So for me, it was very important to show this disparity. And it was a Norwegian journalist who actually came to Bolivia and helped Stina to escape, to have the to win awards. And it was weird and bizarre. So for me, it was very important. This film quite actually was funded by the Norwegian Film Institute and by the Norwegian television station. And then they banned it. They banned it in Norway. And for a very long time, they didn't allow us to screen it. So wow. it's a quite interesting story, and people in Norway still want to see it so much. And I think that they want to even make a fiction film about it. So it's weird.
Yeah. How long were you shooting that film for? Can you hear me?
How long the internet is gone.
No problem. I said, how long were you shooting that film for? What was the timeline of making that project? Can you hear me? Or is it frozen? We may have lost her briefly. Let's see if she's... That's okay. Well, see, this is the part of the show where I think you're back. Okay, cool.
I'm in the middle of, I don't know if people know, but I'm in the middle of Sydney, and the internet is terrible.
We actually used to do we have a quarantine concert series, and every time we had an Australian artist on, the internet would go out.
Can you see me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. So I've had a lot of experience I've had some experience with Australian guests, and so we don't do the concert series anymore because the music always drops. But in terms of conversations, this is good. You were talking about Bolivian Case, and I just want to ask, how long were you working on that project for, and what was the timeline involved in making
It
Bolivian
was a
Case?
short. It was a short. It actually is the shortest of all my films. It took us only like I started, I think, filming in 2013 or 12, 13, and I finished by 2015. So it was 2 years.
Yes, very gripping, very gripping. How can people see these movies like the Bolivian Case? It sounds so gripping. What would you recommend as a way that people can watch it?
The Bolivian Case is not available. We had a deal with Netflix Latin America, and we didn't like the mule person there. And then they really wanted to make a fiction film about it, and they were following us so much about it. And I found all this unethical. If they wanted to make it, they can find their own investigation, but I just didn't want to make it available. And because for a very long time the film was banned, it was really hard. And now, one day I'm going to say, okay, maybe people can watch it now. But at the moment, all of my films, you can watch them except the Bolivian Case. I love it. It was on Ibermedia. It was distributed to all public channels in Latin America. It was actually the film that won most awards in Latin America and was really loved in also Israel. But yeah, you can watch
Got
it.
it. Yeah. And talking about another Bolivian based film, The Fight. What happens when people with disabilities fight for survival in Bolivia? So, what was it about this story that spoke to you, that inspired you to make a film about it?
Well, this was happening 2 blocks away from my house in Cochabamba, my city, and people were actually fighting and asking for a disability pension, and they were actually hanging themselves from bridges. And when I saw that, I thought that, like, I didn't even, yeah, that's I didn't even know what could have happened. But then later, when they were in the road, they called me and they said that the government want to intervene, and I was really upset and sad about that idea. So we went with the cameras and we never stopped it. So we filmed for 6 months on the road, and then we even go to Geneva. And this is the film that I feel incredibly proud as a filmmaker, because it's the film that came to me at the right time, with the right experience, to be able to follow these characters and this caravan for such a long time in such an amazing way. We made a short. The thing is that on this film is also that the people with disabilities win their pension, and the film is part of that winning of their pension, and that the government in the end gives up. But it's also a film that changes what you feel and what you think about people with disabilities. So I think that they fight for their own rights like any other group in the society. And I think that disability rights are political rights. And I think that that's so important. So it's character driven, it's beautiful, and it's shot in a very, very taste style. And we're making the feature length also on a very taste style.
Yeah, it certainly seems like.
So the short you can watch it on The Guardian.
Yes, I encourage everyone to see it. And in fact, let's put up your social media up and website. There it is, UnitedNotionsFilm.com.
It doesn't work again.
UnitedNotionsFilm.com. If you want to get in the loop of what Violeta is making and her films, yes, check her out. Check her out her social media. Yes, and then you can get updated on all of her great projects there on the website, on the crawl. There it is, crawling across the screen. Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. So talk to us about your magnum opus, Cocaine Prison. Can you hear us? Cocaine Prison? We can hear you, yes.
No, it's not working.
Yes. I'll just write you the question right now. Talk to us about Cocaine Prison. Oh, there she goes. Great thing about live TV or live broadcast is that every so often you have to kill time. And what I mean by kill time, I mean you really have to kill it and wait for the person to come back, and they're back. So let's get her back on the screen. Welcome back to the intermittent quarantine film series.
It's Australia, mate.
No, we can do this. We can do this in chapters. It's great. It's great. So this chapter 4 here, I want to ask you about your magnum opus, Cocaine Prison, inside the craziest, a crazy situation. This is such a fascinating story, and one that I think resonated with people all over the world. Why did you want to make this movie in particular?
Cocaine Prison was my most planned film. So while all of the other films just happened, Cocaine Prison, I planned it. I planned it all the time from beginning to end. This is the film I really wanted to make. This is the film this is the story that I really wanted to make, because it was a story about the demystification of the war on drugs. I wanted people to understand, after watching Narcos and all of these films, about one side of the story. I wanted to show the story that I lived. This prison, again, is in front of the other prison of the Bolivian Case. It's a few blocks away from my house. And I wanted to show that who are paying the price are the little ants, and are the little people, are the most vulnerable people. But I wanted to humanize it, and I wanted to show that it's not violent, that the violence comes because of the war on drugs, that the coca leaves are like coffee grains, are like wine, are like grapes to wine. So for me, it was important to humanize and give a different story about this narco war that is so dehumanizing, and looks at us as indigenous people as like we are horrible people who wanted to poison children and people in the US. I wanted to show how dark and dirty, but without going into the violence. So there is not one bullet fire. And it's a very human story about a family and a group of prisoners. And another thing also is like we gave camera to the prisoners, so they filmed their own lives and they documented their own lives, and that was wonderful because the story is told not from the outside but from the inside.
Yeah, what a remarkable way to film it. Some nerdy film questions for you. One of which is, how did you film it in terms of the camera? As you mentioned, the prisoners had. So what were the type of cameras that they used and that you used?
Yeah, well, they used the little Sony cameras. We gave them, and when the police found them, they take them away. So we gave them a lot. So I think 10 cameras were used in this process. That can fit on your shoe, this camera, or can fit on your pocket. And we use proper the Canon DSLR cameras when we film inside. We went there to teach English, and we actually really did teach English, me and my partner, my filmmaking partner, Dan Fulshaw. And we actually spent 2 years, almost every day, going to prison. And it's almost like we casted, like it's so many characters that we could follow, and we followed them until we found Mario and Hernan. And Hernan had a sister, and they're teenagers, and he got involved because he wanted to buy a drum set to be on a band. So for me, it was very important to show that it wasn't like he was starving, or like it was deeper than that. Like in this business, if you don't get caught, you haven't done it, because you're not killing anybody. It's just, so for me, it was important in a way to go away from this narco, I don't know, romanticization of the war on drugs that is really harming us. And it's really harming so many people. So I wanted to just really go away from that. And this film took me a long time to make. We started in 2010, and we premiered in 2017. We made 2 films in between, Cocaine Prison. As I said, it was very difficult to put together as a film, because it's what they shot and what we shot. And also, everybody says, wow, it's amazing to make film in a prison. And I'm like, well, not because prisons are boring, because you do the same thing, are microcosms, but everybody does the same thing every day.
Yeah.
Well, so they're not so much fun.
Yeah, describe the music or soundtrack of the film. As you know, I'm a musician. What was the music like for this?
It's quite interesting because the composer is an Australian composer, but I said, you can't make the music for Cocaine Prison from Australia. So he actually came to Bolivia, and we recorded together. And I wanted to get away from this, like like I call it a Spanishization of Andean music, because like, the one that you hear outside the metro. I love the music outside the metro, but I wanted to get away from this Hispanization of the music, and I want them to play the instruments in a way that will be closer to our own roots. So, and I think that we achieved that a little bit to a point. It also, like the opening of the film, it's in Quechua, and
Right.
so we actually wrote the story of the music together, and we had like we traveled to so many places, to Oruro, to find these musicians from like, we found the guitarist in Oruro, I think,
Wow.
in a competition. In the market we found the one who plays the charango. Then we found the guy, one of the guys that is from a famous band. He plays the pan pipes, and then we recorded. So in this really old studio that where you walk and like it cracks.
Yes, yes. So that's
um,
fascinating, and it's beautiful, and I'm excited to listen in depth. Now I want to move just quickly. We have only a couple of minutes left. We move from Cocaine Prison to Prison X. So talk to us about the VR and the robotic exhibition involved with Prison X.
So it started in 2015. This is I was invited by the Tribeca Film Institute as one of the artists who can work on VR. And I wasn't very fascinated just yet. I thought that like VR is clunky and it really doesn't work, until I saw Tilbrush and Quill and the possibilities that you could create. I didn't like to film in VR, but I liked it to create in VR. And that's how it started. And then it grew, like it's inspired on Cocaine Prison, on the characters of Cocaine Prison, but now it's totally mythological. It's based on the story of the Diablo, El Tío, in the mines. And it's also, now I'm also a character, and on Prison X, it's like a series of short films but they all come together, and you can experience them on VR, or you will be able to also experience them on 2D now, because we're doing all the animation with motion capture. And one of the characters is Dan McPie, is based on my partner, and he says his poncho says better than yours, and he talks so much about about colonization and who has the right to tell our stories, and why it's so important that we kind of change the way that stories are told. All was created. It's funny because all was created hand painted in VR. It's funny to say it, but yeah. And also the characters are animated. Like I am the jaguaress, and so other actors are each of these characters, and they move like us. So I'm also doing motion capture and artificial intelligence. So they look at you when you walk, and so they follow you. And it's such a fascinating experience to understand what virtual reality is today. Is also a tool to defilm. This is going to democratize the process of animation. I think that if you needed 1,000 people to make an animation Disney movie, today, very soon, you're going to need 10 people to do it. And that's what was one of the possibilities of virtual reality, because you can just create a character, like draw it in VR, rig it in Maya, and then program it, and then do mock-up for all the movements. And mock-up is so much beautiful than traditional animation. So and then a part of that is also like a devil robot that will also question who is the puppet and who's gonna be the puppeteer. And I was working a little bit with the Open Doc Lab at the MIT. And so it's all about the decolonization of storytelling with these stories,
Right.
and who actually like what if the stories and the past could be editable? Because as you know, like I have to look into myself to tell my own story and the stories that are happening in my country. And I think it's important that we indigenous people have the right to tell our own stories and find our own narratives, and that will be the only way. And VR gives you that possibility too, because nothing is created. if someone says to you, I'm an expert on VR, you know they're bullshitting. Sorry, but there is no one an expert on this, because it's all this time of everybody is experimenting. We are in this process of massive experimentation in this arena, and the fact that you can create the floor, the top, the walls, the characters, you can create anything, and then you can really go into this idea of what else can be story, and also music. The sound is ambisonic. Like, what can we do with this? And so for me, it's quite key that I am a bit tired, I was saying, about talking so much about racism and being like a racism expert, because I am an artist. Somebody said to me, you're so passionate about racism. I'm like, no, I'm living it every day. I'm not passionate about it. I hate it, actually. I wish I never had to talk about it, and I wish it didn't happen, you know? So I really do appreciate that we talk about a lot. Actually, I do appreciate that when I am able to talk about the work that I do, you know what I mean, and the things that how I create things, and it demystifying this idea of like women creators and women filmmakers and women technologies, and we like we really need to break these barriers, and we are doing it, and we were doing like based on our hard work. At the same time, I'm building this coalition with my sisters in the United States, Saba Folayan, Sonia Childress, Asia Bundawi, Abisan. We're making a coalition and a board to fight against racism and against colonization on the film world. And we don't want any more like little, we don't want like a little band-aid. We are fighting for real change. And at the same time, goes without saying, I want artists of color, I want indigenous artists, Black artists to actually have the right to experiment, to find their own voices, to tell their own stories, so we can really decolonize all this space. And I think it's so important that we do have the right, that we actually are not the conduit for more colonization, but we actually are the ones who say, stop, no, you're not going to tell my story. This story, it's going to be me, the one who's going to tell, because my perspective and my way that I'm going to do this is what it matters, not what in a white men's world is considered like meritocracy or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, we really have to change all that. So for me, this moment in my life, I'm so concentrated on creating and making, but also, of course, organizing and being part of the revolution.
That you are. You're not just seeing the change, you're being the change and inspiring it. What a powerful story. Your films are a very, very compelling, personal, fascinating. I encourage everyone to see them. Please go to Violeta's website. We'll put that back up on the screen. And there it is, UnitedNotionsFilm.com, and check out her social media. Really a pleasure to have you on the show, all the way from Sydney. Wishing you all the best on your next venture. Everyone, you've got to just subscribe to her social media so you get in the loop, because she's doing stuff at the nexus of brilliant storytelling and compelling technology with this recent VR project. That is the show today. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe and stay warm. Winter is coming. Bye, everyone.